Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at modelling a Lego block in Maya. So with Maya, the best thing to do when you begin with is you want to find a shape that's the closest sort of thing to resemble what you want to model. So Lego block, so we want cube, so you can either go up to poly modeling shelf, you got cube there, or you can go to create polygon primitives and cube, or hold spacebar, come up to create polygon primitive and cube like that, and it'll come into the middle of your screen. If I press F for frame, it will zoom in on what I've got selected, and we're going to scale it up. So to scale, on the left hand side you've got the scale tool there, or if you look it says R in brackets, that is the keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to click on it, press R to scale, and we've got our scale handle. So I'm going to drag it out a little bit. I'm going to zoom out using my mouse wheel and just drag it out to whereabouts looks right. And then if I hold Alt on my keyboard and then click with my left mouse, I can pan around and sort of get a look and see that I'm happy with the shape. So overall, sort of size-wise, that's fine. So I'm then going to right-click and go to Face Mode, which will let me select a particular face, like that. So I'm going to come to the bottom and press Control and Backspace to delete it. So I've now got the back missing. I'm then going to go right-click and go to Object Mode, have it selected, go to Control E, which is extrude, and I want thickness here. So if you drag thickness, it does it quite quickly, but if you hold Control, it will do it in a lot smaller increments. So I'm going to do it about there, like that. So next thing, with Maya, if you're doing what's known as like high poly or low poly, so if we say we're going to do like high poly model, if I press 3, that smooth previews it. Okay, so at the minute, that's what's happening. It sort of like collapses into like a shell looking thing. You can get rid of that, so you can press 1 is regular mode, 2 is smooth with sort of like the outline of where it would be, and you can alter it with that, and then 3 is just smooth mode, but it's not actually been smoothed yet. To actually smooth it, you go to mesh and smooth, or again, you can hold down and mesh, or is that not there? No. Okay. So yes, you would go mesh and smooth, but we can't do that yet. So what we need to do, we need to actually add some like supporting lines to our shape. So what we're going to do is go to right click and edge. I'm going to select all of the edges. So as you can see, they're red, which means they're selected. I'm going to go Control B for bevel, and you see it's starting to add a little bevel onto those shapes. What I'm going to do is go segments, put that to 2, and I'm going to increase that fraction a little bit, like that. And then what I'm going to do is if I hit 3 as a preview and click off, and you can see it's rounded those edges off really nicely. So that is the overall sort of shape of the Lego block. I'm just going to turn it off again, so I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard. So now what we're going to do is start to add in our actual like bobbly bits. Now there's a couple of ways of doing it. You could model it as in you extrude it off from the shape, but the other way you can do it is just by grabbing another shape. So here I've just gotten a cylinder. W is my keyboard shortcut for move. I drag it up. I'm going to click R for scale, and then making sure you grab the right part. So I'm going to grab the one in the middle. I'm going to drag down, and I want to make sure I'm sort of getting it looking right. So I'm going to do a couple of things. On this top panel here, I'm going to click on here, which says, well, it doesn't say anything, but there you go, wireframe unshaded is what we want. So that'll sort of show me the overall outline and the shape. I'm then going to hold mouse, spacebar, click on the middle one and go to top view and zoom in. And then what I can do is I can move that into position and just go by what I think will look about right. I can go Control D and W and move it. Select them both, Control D, W, move, and select all again, Control D, W, and move like that. And all I'm doing at the minute is just to check, grab them all, move them down, and see how they look. So at the minute, that's a little bit too tall. So what we're going to do is right click, go to vertex, select those, still got the move tool selected. I'm going to drag it down to where I think looks a bit more realistic, which is probably around there. Object, I'm actually going to delete all these ones because I don't need them at the minute. Because these are all going to be the same, the best thing to do is you create one and you can just duplicate it over and over again. So I'm going to make sure I've got move selected, drag it up a little bit, and then because I know that's the right sort of shape and size now, what I'm going to do is bevel the edges. So actually the first thing I will do is right click, go to face, and if I hold down, I can just select each face individually like that, and then hold shift and select them, or if you hold down tab on your keyboard is my paint selection, so I can drag and paint those. And I'm going to do control backspace delete, and then go to edge. If I double click on one edge there, it'll select all of them. Control B to bevel. I'm going to do 2 segments again. I'm going to bring that fraction in, hit 3 on the keyboard, go to object just to see how it's looking. Let's bring it down so it's just sitting on the surface. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, go back to top view. I'm going to go select it, go Control D to duplicate. Make sure I've got W selected to move it and drag it up. Select both of them, Control D again, and then W and drag to move. Select all 4, Control D to duplicate, and then drag it across like that. So then if I turn off unshaded, quite quickly we've managed to get the top part of our Lego block modelled. Then what's left to do is underneath. So this is where we have like the bits that sort of intersect onto there. So we're going to get another cylinder, W, drag it up, R to scale. Then what I'm going to do is make sure I've got wireframe selected again, go to top view, move it into position because it's going to go in between, R to scale, drag it down until it starts to look about right, maybe a little bit bigger, about there, go to perspective view, W to move, drag it down, I'm going to decide, I'm going to turn on wireframe unshaded, go to right view, or we'll go to front view like that so we can see where it is. Right click, go to vertex, select top vertex and W and drag up. And then I'm going to grab these vertex and drag down. So that's the right size. Perspective view, I'm going to turn off wireframe. I'm then going to right click and go to face, hold down tab and select these faces. Control D, right click, go to object mode. Then I'm going to Control E to extrude. Now, because I know that's the right thickness outward wise, I'm going to bring it in a little bit, like that. Now, what you'll see is it's gone black. So what we need to do, we need to change that. So if I select it, if I go to Mesh Display, and I go to where it says Normals at the top here, I'm going to reverse. That'll change the colour of it. And then what I'm going to do is I just need to bevel some edges, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, go Control 1 on my keyboard to isolate that object, and then right click and face, and again hold down tab to select these faces and delete them because we don't need them. And then what I'm going to do is right click, go to edge, double click that edge, hold down shift, double click that edge, hold down shift, double click that edge. Then I'm going to go to Control B for bevel. I'm going to put 2 segments, and I'm going to make the fraction a little bit smaller. Go to object mode, hit 3, and then turn off wireframe to have a look at it. Like that. Then I can press Control 1 on my keyboard again to unisolate. And then we've got 1, so I'm then going to just go to front view, turn on unshaded, click on the object, Control D to duplicate, press W for the move tool, move that into position, go to perspective, And I'm going to turn off wireframe. I'm going to drag that up a second just to check that it's in the right place. So it needs to come up a little bit more about there. And drag it down into position like that. And then if I turn off wireframe, go to object mode, you see we've got our Lego block finished. So quite quick and easy to do. What I'll do in a future video, in the next video, is I'll show you about UV unwrapping and why we do it and how to do it, because it's quite an easy object to do. It's worth pointing out at the minute as well is these are still at the minute, if I move it, separate objects. So what I can then do is go to object, select them all, and go to mesh and combine. Now that is all one object. And it's also worth pointing out still, if I press 1, they are not smoothed. So what I need to do is go to mesh and smooth. One division is fine. So now those are all smoothed up. You can see they're smoothed because there's a lot more faces and edges on there. If I hit Q, it sort of confirms the action. And we've got one like that. So then if you want to have multiple, super easy, just go Control D, W to move. I can duplicate, so I can create quite a few different Lego blocks. Control D to duplicate, W to move up. So I can create multiple blocks really, really easily. As I said, in the next video we'll have a look at UV unwrapping and then adding some materials, but that's just a nice little introduction to the basics of modelling in Maya. Hopefully you found that useful. Any questions, email me at designwithsimon@outlook.com.